Rome had conquered the Mediterranean world by the 1st century BC, yet its republic was crumbling under the weight of internal strife. Political corruption, social unrest, and violent factionalism created an environment ripe for power-hungry leaders to rise. Among them, Lucius Cornelius Sulla stood apart, a man whose ambition and ruthlessness would forever alter Rome's history. Born in 138 BC into the prestigious Cornelii family, Sulla's early life was far from privileged. Though his lineage carried weight, his family's fortunes had dwindled. However, a sudden inheritance from both his stepmother and a former mistress transformed his destiny, giving him the financial means to pursue a political and military career. Sulla first made his mark during the Jugurthine War in North Africa, serving as quaestor under the renowned general Gaius Marius. The war exposed the deep corruption and inefficiency plaguing Rome, but Sulla's brilliance shone through. Leading cavalry units and securing key victories, he quickly earned the respect of his peers. His crowning achievement came not on the battlefield but in the realm of diplomacy. Sulla's cunning negotiations led to Jugurtha's betrayal and capture, effectively ending the war. This success brought him widespread acclaim but also kindled a bitter rivalry with Marius, who began to view Sulla's rising star with jealousy and distrust. Sulla's military career flourished further during the Cimbrian War. As Rome faced the terrifying might of Germanic tribes, Sulla played a crucial role in dividing the enemy and supporting key commanders. His growing reputation made it impossible for even Marius to ignore his value, though their rivalry simmered beneath the surface. Transitioning to politics, Sulla became urban praetor in 98 BC, where he won the favor of the Roman people through public spectacles and games. But his focus never strayed far from military glory. His skills were soon tested again in Asia Minor, where Rome faced the growing threat of Mithridates VI of Pontus. In Cappadocia, Sulla achieved a decisive victory, restoring a deposed king and reasserting Rome's dominance in the region. His audacity in negotiating directly with envoys of the powerful Parthian Empire further elevated his status, solidifying his reputation as both a shrewd diplomat and an unyielding general. Returning to Rome in triumph, Sulla rode a wave of popularity. His leadership during the Social War, a brutal conflict with Rome's Italian allies, cemented his position as one of the Republic's greatest military minds. His victories on the battlefield propelled him to the consulship in 88 BC, the culmination of years of relentless ambition. As consul, Sulla prepared to lead a campaign against Mithridates, but his plans were derailed when Marius, still a formidable figure, used political intrigue to strip him of his command. Faced with this betrayal, Sulla made a decision that would shock Rome to its core. Defying centuries of tradition, Sulla marched his legions on Rome itself, becoming the first Roman general to use military force against his own city. This unprecedented act secured his position but at a terrible cost. The Republic, already fragile, was left deeply scarred by the violence and chaos that followed. Sulla's ascent was a story of audacity and ruthlessness. After seizing control of Rome, Sulla implemented sweeping reforms designed to consolidate power and weaken his enemies. His policies targeted the Populars faction, a group championing the cause of Rome's lower classes, to which Marius had belonged. Sulla declared himself dictator in 82 BC, not temporarily as tradition dictated, but without a time limit, marking a radical break from republican norms. Sulla unleashed a reign of terror through his infamous proscriptions, lists of individuals deemed enemies of the state. These lists authorized the execution of hundreds of senators, equestrians, and political rivals. Their properties were confiscated and sold, enriching Sulla and his allies while instilling fear across Rome. For Sulla, these purges were more than political vengeance. They were a means to cement his authority and crush opposition. Despite the brutality of his methods, Sulla saw himself as a restorer of the Republic. His constitutional reforms sought to strengthen the Senate, curtail the power of the tribunes, and limit the ability of generals to amass personal armies. Ironically, his own rise to power had been a glaring example of the dangers he claimed to address. Yet Sulla's reforms failed to stabilize Rome. The seeds of discontent remained, as his actions had fundamentally broken the trust between Rome's institutions and its citizens. The Senate, supposedly strengthened by his efforts, was left paralyzed and dominated by fear. The populace, though suppressed, would eventually rally under new leaders like Julius Caesar, who would follow in Sulla's footsteps to dismantle the Republic entirely. In 79 BC, To the shock of many, Sulla voluntarily stepped down from power. He retired to a villa in the countryside, where he spent his remaining years writing memoirs and indulging in leisure. He justified his actions as necessary evils to save Rome, but his legacy was one of bloodshed and authoritarianism. Sulla died in 78 BC, leaving behind a Rome that was permanently altered by his ambition and cruelty. Sulla's ascent was both a warning and a precedent. His willingness to wield violence against his own people demonstrated the fragility of republican ideals in the face of unchecked power. By marching on Rome and declaring himself dictator, Sulla opened the floodgates for future generals, such as Pompey, Crassus, and ultimately Caesar, to follow his path. His legacy was not the restoration of the Republic but the beginning of its end, a transformation from a government of laws to one ruled by the sword. Sulla's rise and rule left an indelible mark on Roman history, serving as a cautionary tale of how ambition and military power could disrupt centuries of political tradition. While he viewed himself as a defender of the Republic, his actions undermined its core principles, revealing the fragility of Rome's political system when confronted with concentrated power. His reforms, though aimed at restoring order, inadvertently accelerated the Republic's decline. By weakening the tribunes and limiting popular representation, Sulla alienated the very forces that had helped stabilize Rome during its tumultuous expansion. The Senate, though momentarily empowered, lacked the unity and vision to govern effectively in the long term. His reliance on violence and prescriptions planted deep divisions within Roman society, fostering a culture of fear and retaliation that would haunt the state for decades. The path Sulla carved, one of marching armies on Rome and using force to resolve political disputes, became a model for future leaders. Generals like Pompey and Caesar would adopt similar tactics, eroding the Republic further. Caesar, in particular, would emulate Sulla's boldness, crossing the Rubicon with his legions and seizing power, a step that ultimately led to the establishment of the Roman Empire. Sulla's story is a reminder of the delicate balance required to maintain a republic. His life and career highlight how ambition, unchecked by institutional safeguards, can lead to tyranny, even under the guise of reform. While Sulla claimed to have acted for Rome's good, his legacy is a testament to the destructive power of absolute authority and the enduring consequences of political violence. Sulla's resignation from dictatorship in 81 BC was an unusual and perplexing move. Unlike future strongmen, he voluntarily relinquished his absolute authority, retiring to a life of relative seclusion. This decision has puzzled historians, as it contrasts sharply with his earlier ruthless pursuit of power. It raises questions about whether he genuinely believed his reforms had secured the Republic or if he was simply weary of the constant struggles for dominance. Despite his claims of restoring order, Sulla's actions inadvertently encouraged others to emulate his path to power. His march on Rome set a precedent that fundamentally changed the dynamics of Roman politics. The idea that a general could use military force to dictate political outcomes would haunt the Republic, as figures like Pompey, Caesar, and even Augustus followed in his footsteps, ultimately dismantling the republican system altogether. If you found this journey through the life of Sulla insightful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Stay tuned for more captivating stories from history that shape the world we live in today. Your support helps us bring these tales of power, ambition, and legacy to life. Hit the subscribe button and join us in exploring the fascinating past of humanity.